Oh, you mean the idea that an all-knowing, all-powerful God who's full of unconditional love would create a place to torture and kill people forever? Why is that problematic, you ask? Maybe because it follows the tenets of narcissistic abuse and narcissistic personality disorder by the textbook. So you take a God who intentionally created beings that he knew would be deceived because he wouldn't reach out to them so that he could kill them and torture them just for not knowing him, even though he provided no evidence for them to know him. I could go on and on about why hell is problematic. I mean, hell is problematic just for Christians even, because y'all can't agree on what hell is, if it exists, if it's forever, if it's annihilationism, if it's temporary.
So I wanted to respond to this problem of hell, but Justin in his video ends with this idea that there is a diversity of opinions about the nature of hell. So any response that I give, he could just simply say, well, that's one of many opinions, which is a valid point. The issue with that is that it's not an argument against Christianity as such, right? Because if that were the case, there would be an equal argument against the idea of, let's say, empiricism or science, because there are many people with varying opinions that disagree with one another and even contradict fundamentally, and they have equally heated debates about them. Now, you could say it's couched in this world of evidence and repeatability, and therefore it's not subject to the same scrutiny. But the problem is that you have things such as string theory, which is, as far as I can tell, utterly contradictory to many other theories, and in fact is being shown how unuseful that theory is. It hasn't provided any insight that is provable. It hasn't provided any new scientific breakthroughs or understanding. It's just a theory, and it's the same with Christianity, right? It's an attempt to reconcile seemingly disparate facts and imposing meaning upon it, placing value, creating a theory, an overarching concept. Does that mean that empiricism is faulty? No. Does that mean Christianity is faulty because there are different views about different things within the theology? No. But he's right in a sense that if some of them are correct, it creates a dilemma of how do I know which one is correct? So there is validity there in the idea, right? If it's necessary to believe X or do X in order to be saved, and someone else disagrees and says, no, you must do Y or believe Y, that is a dilemma. Suffice it to say that within the context of Christianity, it's something like your level of faith and love of the truth will dictate your understanding of the truth. So it's not so much about the specifics as much as it is about reading the Bible, interpreting it according to your faith and love of whatever happens to be true, right? Pursuing that regardless of the implications, which is a religious notion and fundamentally the driving force behind science, behind empiricism, right? This idea that the truth carries with it value. That is a hierarchy of values. That is a dogmatic, religious-esque statement. Now, to get to the actual point about hell. So as far as I can tell from the Bible, again, this is my view, it's not really a question of, is God just? Because you have to accept, if you're going to argue that hell is unjust, you're using a concept within Christianity, which means you can't take it in isolation. You have to take it within the entire context of Christianity and the Bible, which, despite what some may argue, is pretty cohesive and can be understood. It can be made sense of. But here's the thing, God is just. So what we're left with is a punishment that exists. And there seems to be a multiplicity, as you outlined, of descriptions about what this punishment actually is. The Bible teaches very clearly, Jesus, who speaks more than any other figure about hell, explains that hell is, or punishment rather, is proportionate to our understanding and our ability. And there's two things to that. One, you don't actually know what hell is. So there's an unknown level of punishment that you're preemptively deciding is unjust. And two, you lack the complete objective view of what sin is and whether or not it is worthy of the punishment that you don't know what it is. There's nothing coming to you that you don't deserve. And God is merciful. Yes, he has mercy on those whom he wills. And this problem of, well, why did he make them if he's going to send them to hell? The Bible's answer to this is in the words of Paul, who Justin loves. It's something like, who are you to say that the potter has no right to make one vessel for good use that you would value, and one vessel for disuse that you would use temporarily for your purposes and destroy? Now, that can seem cruel, but it's not saying, who are you to judge God? Just gave me spoon tomatoes. Look at how small they are. What the heck? That's so cool. Anyway, what was I saying? I'm not saying, who are you to judge God for endlessly punishing someone for finite sins? He's saying, very simply, who are you to judge God, the Creator, for giving life to someone to bring about his purpose? Who are you to judge God for that? If there is a God, right? It's assuming that God exists. Because if you are going to argue against Christianity, it has to be, again, within the context of the entirety of Christianity. This is where I feel a lot of atheists, myself, when I was one, included, a very militant one, it tends to be the issue is that they take something in isolation, argue against it, and then that's that. But they're not taking into account the rest of what the Bible says in regards to that thing. But those are my thoughts. Anyway, shalom.